I just watched the Odyssey last night and it was unbelievable. I just can't believe how good it was. I really enjoyed it and I'm definitely going to go see it again. But there's a part of the Odyssey after I watched all the explainer videos that no one seems to really be talking about. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how the Odyssey actually helps you find your purpose. See, when I watched it, there was two characters that stuck out to me as complete opposites in every aspect. The first one was Odysseus, the man that obviously embarks on this journey, spends 10 years fighting on the beaches of Troy and then a further 10 years trying to get home. The other man was Antinous. Right? He was the man that was obviously sitting in Odysseus's home, drinking all his wine, eating all his food, thinking he was the leader of all those men in the hall, waiting for Odysseus's wife to finally take Antinous and accept him as king, even though he did nothing to deserve it. And I feel like there's a stark contrast between the two because one of them seeks out discomfort, embarks on journeys and does the things that no one else wants to do to become a better man, while the other just sits comfortable, enjoying someone else's hard work and hopes to get all the praise. Now, I know a lot of men in this category and I used to be the same as well. You know, I'd sit up at 3 a.m. in the morning, doom scrolling on my phone, feeling like rubbish, feeling like I had no purpose and no meaning. I was just a leech to being comfortable. Right? It was all until I decided to leave my home, leave my environment and travel to Australia to live by myself for 2 years that I realised that doing the hard things in life is where you find the most purpose. I did door-to-door sales for 2 years. I faced rejection every single day. It was one of the hardest jobs I've ever done. And it taught me so much about your grit and who you are as a person, how to actually find your meaning, your purpose, and the reason for your existence. Because if you spend all your time like Antinous, just being comfortable, you're not going to become the person that you think you should be. You know, Odysseus in the movie and obviously the books, he was fighting monsters, he was fighting battles, he was strategizing, he was working with his crew, he wanted to make sure everyone got home safe, alive. He risked his life more times than most, and he did all that he could to return him and all his men home. Obviously, Antinous, he was going to go and fight in the war in Troy when he was a younger man, but he bribed Sinon so that Sinon would take his place. And he told Sinon, I'll give your family wealth so that they don't need to worry about money. Sinon accepted, but Antinous never followed through on his promise. He never gave his family the money. You know, Sinon is probably one of the most tragic characters in the whole story because he was tricked and he died being a fool. I think another important part about the story is about control. Antinous, when he was in the hall eating all the food and drinking all the wine, he was almost like the leader of the men in the hall. You know, he guided himself so that the men would kind of not look up to him, but he sought the control in that room. He felt like he was the one that deserved the queen's hand in marriage. He felt like it was all up to him. He was the one that deserved it all, even though he'd done nothing. He was wearing all this armor, all this luxurious clothing, and he'd never fought in it. He had weapons that he'd never used. He was basically pretending to live the life of a king while never embarking on the hard journeys to actually deserve it. He was pretending to have control. Odysseus was a man who gave up his control in the end. You know, he realized he tried to control his crew and he tried to guide them so that they survived, and his crew ate Apollo's cattle, which upset him, which ended up getting his crew killed. Odysseus tried to control his men, but he couldn't, and he gave up that control. Some things you can't control. Most things in life that you can't control. You can't control the weather. You can't control what other people decide is best for them. The only thing that you can do is control yourself, control how you see the world, and control your own actions and your own curiosity. So he's the one that managed to go out in the ocean in a raft after living 7 years with Calypso. He went out on a raft and he gave up his control. He didn't row, he didn't sail, he just lay there and wait for the water to guide him. He gave up that control and he found his way home. And I feel like that's such an important thing about finding your purpose, is that something that you're looking for, you can't find it by, one, being comfortable, and two, being in control. You have to give up your control, and you have to give up your comfort. You have to expose yourself to difficult and hard challenges and experiences, and you have to remove the illusion of control that you think you have. I think another point is that Odysseus' greatest power wasn't his intellect, although he was the smartest. His greatest power wasn't his strength, although he was the only one who could bend the bow. Odysseus' greatest strength was his curiosity. When he sailed through the sirens with his men, and the sirens were singing his song, he didn't put wax in his ears, obviously, and he tied himself to the mast. I don't think it was arrogance that he did that. I think the reason he tied himself to the mast was just because of his curiosity. He wanted to understand this treacherous world that he'd been navigating. He wanted to learn from it. He didn't want to take himself out of experience, because experience is knowledge. Knowledge can't be found in a book. It can't be found on a phone. It can't be found at 3 a.m. in the morning when you're trying to fill yourself with motivation. Knowledge can only be found through experience, and he wanted to experience everything. And that's why he was such a great strategist. That's why he was so smart, was because he didn't remove any experience. He wanted to expose himself to the difficulty of all of it so that he could learn from it. And that's what we must do. That's how you must find your purpose, is you must expose yourself to hard things, let go of the control, and just accept what you can't understand. In order to become a great man, you must be curious about the world and brave enough to leave everything behind to seek it out.